The Oklahoma Sooners are keeping active in the transfer portal.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase over at Game Time. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Again, thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, the Oklahoma Sooners are staying busy in the transfer portal. Had another couple of additions. Let's start on the offensive line, where the Sooners added another veteran offensive tackle in Western Carolina's Derek Simmons. Now, again, making the move down to the FCS to add a player that you're hoping that can compete for a starting job or maybe take a starting job on the offensive line for you, has played more than 1,500 snaps in his collegiate career. So getting a guy with a lot of experience.
A lot of experience, and he actually blocks very well. I mean, looking at it, I think he gave up like 11 pressures or whatnot all last season at one of the tackle spots. And he gives you a big guy that also has 1 year of experience, one year left of eligibility. And so the one thing I like to point out about, if you pay attention to the way the Sooners strategy has been around the transfer portal, it seems like they're getting guys that are a lot older, more experience, more snaps, more production, instead of getting guys that are truly projects that, I mean, occasionally you'll see a project slip here and there if the depth is low, for example, at wide receiver. But here on the offensive line, they're getting guys that have that additional experience, because when you look at the deep now, John, Bill Bedenbaugh has himself a lot of tackles and guards. I mean, he's probably got about 17 dudes that he gets to work with in his configurations, from young to also old. And so it doesn't alienate his players and his young players by bringing these guys in. It just reinforces and gives them someone to push them, so that if you do need an experienced player to go in the game, you got one.
It's like we talked about on multiple occasions that this just raises the talent floor for you. When you have a guy with this much experience, this experience matters. You look at what he's done in big time games over the last 2 years. He's played 90 snaps as a pass protector against Arkansas and against NC State over the last 2 years, and allowed just 4 total pressures in those games. That's pretty impressive, especially considering a Western Carolina team that got down early in those games and was forced to throw. When you're forced to throw, and the defense knows you have to throw, it makes it a lot more difficult for the offensive line to pass protect, because there's no threat of the run game to keep the defensive line off balance. So that makes it a little bit more challenging. And the guy was able to hold up without allowing any sacks in 2024. And again, against Arkansas, against NC State, not allowing a sack in either game. I think that bodes well for the jump to the SEC. And again, it's going to provide more competition at the offensive tackle spot. And again, a guy with veteran experience.
Yeah, and that's what you need. You're going to need more experience in that room. I mean, this past season, the biggest problem we ran into is that when we started to get injuries with our veteran players, we started to play nothing but young guys. And young guys getting in there and trying to figure out the chemistry piece, it ain't the easiest, especially when you have 5 freshmen that you're really excited about, but you don't want them to be broken in the SEC. Well, some of them kind of got a little bit of broken in the SEC, and it went okay. Logan Howland's probably one good example that he had a lot of ups and downs. His best game was Alabama. His worst game was Ole Miss and LSU games. So you got guys that needed to go in, and they got some experience, but you start to see a little bit of growth and development. Troy Everett struggled his first year here, playing a little bit of guard to the point where they had to pull him out. He got his weight up, and he was a fantastic center in the SEC this past season when he got healthy and was able to play after the Tennessee game. So having a veteran just in case your guys go down is very helpful. And now all you got to do is build up that chemistry and cohesion, and Bill Bedenbaugh's got himself some fun now, especially because if you think about it, John, going from the Jacob Taylor and Jacob Sexton and Jake Taylor, you're behind them all the way to the end. You'll have Michael Fasusi and Ryan Fogier. So technically, you've got yourself a 4 deep of offensive tackles that it's going to be pretty fun to look at and see what happens.
And with Derek Simmons, you're getting a guy that can play a little bit of guard for you too. In week 2 of 2024, he played 36 snaps at right guard. Looking back over his career, he's gotten a little bit of snaps at guard. So I think that helps provide a little bit of the inside outside flexibility that you want to have. You didn't really have much of that with the offensive tackles that you brought in the 2024 transfer portal cycle with Michael Tarkin and Spencer Brown. Those guys were just truly tackles. Well, having a dude like Derek Simmons that can bump into guard if necessary, or if you figure out that your best alignment is with him at guard and one of your younger tackles out on the outside, then I think that puts you in a little bit better position. I'll be curious to know what Bill Bedenbaugh thinks of Luke Baklenko and how he feels position flexibility, if he thinks he might be able to play some guard too. But now you've got an offensive tackle room that looks really solid. Is it great? Yeah. We'll see. Is it good? Hopefully we'll see. But with Luke Baklenko, with Derek Simmons, Jake Taylor, Jacob Sexton, Logan Howland, Michael Fasusi, Ryan Foje, Isaiah Audrey-Dent, forgive me for not mentioning him sooner. That's a really nice offensive tackle room to work with and to continue to build your offensive line depth with.
Yeah, and then you got Daniel Akinkunmi, who can play guard or tackle. Honestly, he can play a little center too. Like whenever he was being recruited from the NFL Academy out there in London, his big thing was, I want to play all 5 positions and I want to learn how to play all 5 positions. And well, that's the reason why you come to Bill Bedenbaugh. He's infamous for teaching all of his linemen all those positions, because you never know when you need to fill in a random spot in a random game because of a random situation. And so now Bill Bedenbaugh's got all of these tools he get to work with. And so I'm pretty excited about it. You're still going to return some really solid guards and Heath Ozida. You still got Fabechi Weewu, who to me, he wasn't as great as you wanted him to be day one, but he was still young. I bet you he does jump up similar to what Troy Everett did his first year. Because his first year, he was, like I said, he wasn't that impressive. But his second year, you're like, oh, that's why they wanted him from Appalachian State. So you get that with Fabechi Weewu. You add in that EPL is going to be moving up. Josh Isosa's ready. And then all the young guys. Honestly, what's crazy, Branson Hickman still has 1 year left of eligibility. So if Branson decides to come back, which looks like it is, to me, if he was leaving, he should have left in the first wave of the transfer portal. You don't want to be stuck in the back end of it.
Nope.
It looks like he's going to be back too. So you put yourself together a good 2, possibly 3 deep on the offensive line, and you can actually give guys breaks. And if somebody goes down, you're not as concerned as you were last season. Last season was rebuild. We've done that. Now you're just adding additional pieces just in case. And if any one of them develop into something special, woo, John, we're going to have ourselves a really good year, because John Mateer needs some good protection.
Yeah, you're going to have to provide good protection. We saw how in 2024, when the offensive line wasn't protecting the quarterback well, how things could break down really, really quickly. We saw how if the run game's not going early in the season, how difficult it is for the quarterback. Once the run game got going a little bit in the second half of the season, you started seeing the offense move a little bit more. It still has to be a lot better, but this is a step in the right direction, adding offensive line depth. And again, this is one of those guys like Luke Baklenko that's not going to keep one of your young guys off the field if they're better than the guy you brought in, right?
Yep.
It's not a progress stopping offensive tackle addition. If Derek Simmons, Luke Baklenko are the best 2 offensive tackles, they're going to play. But if a guy like Jake Taylor gets healthy, Jacob Sexton, they get healthy and they prove that, nope, they're the better option at offensive tackle and they can stay healthy and stay on the field, then you've got good options either way. So this is a really good place for Oklahoma to be in. Again, similar to last year where you have some veteran offensive tackles brought in. But I think with a guy like Simmons, you have a little bit higher upside than maybe you did with a guy like Spencer Brown coming over from Michigan State. So it'll be interesting to see, again, how the offensive tackle competition plays out in the offseason, but it'll be one of those that we're tracking all offseason, and we'll do it here on Locked On Sooners. The Sooners aren't done, though. They added another wide receiver in the transfer portal. Let's discuss him coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, that subscription tracker is huge because I had a VPN that I subscribed to years ago when we lived overseas that I did not realize that I was still subscribed to, and it hit. Well, Rocket Money helped me find that subscription and get it canceled, and now I'm not having to worry about that hitting next year when it comes up. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on, rocketmoney.com/locked-on. And if you're looking for the best prices on the best last minute deals for tickets, got to go check out Game Time. Go download the Game Time app. Use promo code Locked On to get $20 off your first purchase. But a lot of great events happening in the Oklahoma City area right now. Memphis at Oklahoma City this Sunday at the Paycom Center. I'm seeing tickets for $44. You want to go see Creed with arms wide open at the Choctaw Grand Theater? $123. I might want to go see that show Saturday, December 28th, Choctaw Grand Theater over at Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for the best last minute deals. The lowest price is guaranteed over at Game Time. What time is it? Game Time. And thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners added another wide receiver to their depth chart through the transfer portal and one Isaiah Sategna out of Arkansas. This was a productive player who finished second on the team in receiving for the Razorbacks, and a Razorback offense that was surprisingly really, really good this year.
Yeah, Bobby Petrino had them boys balling, and Sategna was one of those components, and he's a good special teams guy. Now, he is not the type that we have been going after as of late. He comes in at 5'11" at roughly about 180 pounds, which is way off from the 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" guys that we've been chasing. But when you need someone that can handle special teams, punts, and kicks offs, yeah, you kind of want to make sure you get a guy that has some experience. And Sategna has actually returned some for touchdowns. So there's more of a comfort level with him coming in at wide receiver at 5'11", being able to return the ball in a comfortable level and not have anybody concerned about drops or muffs, because, man, we had a lot more muff punts than I would have ever expected over the last couple of years. And I think Sategna can help alleviate a lot of that problems. Really cool thing, too, about him, John, he was a top 200 prospect when he got to Arkansas, number 26 wide receiver in the country. That's pretty darn good. And he started off 15 catches, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns his first year playing in every single game in 2023. So he also doesn't fit the typical older player, but he does have 2 years of experience. So only having 2 years left of eligibility makes him be one of the older players on the roster, too.
Yeah, so you add him to Giovanni Gibson, Keontez Lewis, and it's a guy I think that provides you with some inside-outside flexibility. He's a guy that can play some slot behind, Deion Burks, mix in with Jacob Jordan at slot. But I think touching on the return aspect, I think that's really where his value comes in and where he's going to be able to see the field early for the Sooners. Billy Bowman's off to the NFL, which means Peyton Bowen's going to be seeing a more significant load of snaps this next season. I need my man off the return duties. I need him focusing primarily at safety. So Sategna gives you that guy that you can put back there returning kicks. You talked about having returned a touchdown for a kick. He did that back in 2023 when he averaged 12 yards per return on punts, averaged 21.7 yards per return on kickoffs for Arkansas. And this past season, he only had 3 kick returns, but he averaged 17.3 yards per return. Now it's a lost art a little bit. But we've seen, and we saw it against LSU, right, how quickly a game can turn on a kick return. And if you got a guy that's got that dynamic ability to maybe create a big play in special teams, how much that can help and boost your team and create a momentum shift. So I like the addition here. Again, it's not going to be one of those guys that keeps one of your youngsters off the field necessarily, but it's a guy that has an ability to go make some plays in the offense.
Yeah, he just adds an additional component and layer to what you're trying to do. The biggest thing has been that we would like guys to be able to go out there and, be game changers, be out there and just make plays, be gamers as they would call it, and just do something. Sategna is one of those guys that can do that. Like, we tried the Peyton Bowen and Billy Bowman experiment. It just did not work out. Peyton Bowen, it just didn't look like he was very comfortable with fielding the punts and trying to return them. Nothing really opened up, or he didn't create much of anything. But at the same time, like you said, his snaps are going to increase because we need him to actually make plays on defense now. And that to be the focal point. So you have him out there playing at the free safety spot, and you move Robert Spears-Jennings up to strong safety and let him do the standard blitzing or the run stuffing that he's really good at doing. If he does not decide to forego and go to the pros, you have him come back. Yeah, you want him to go ahead and play towards the runs to give him the strong, and let Peyton just go out there and do the things that he did in high school, where he would just be out there looking around, and if he sensed it, use his spidey senses to go out there and catch passes out of nowhere, knock down passes, or get interceptions. We want him all over the field and playing a very critical role like that. So yeah, I would prefer Peyton Bowen not doing the returns anymore. Give me Sategna. And then he just adds to that, like I said, that wide receiver room. Him, Deion Burks, gives you two dudes who are very much speedsters that once Mateer figures out the timing with these dudes, he's going to be able to launch it. All he's got to do is get rid of the ball. He puts the ball in their hands. They can make stuff happen in space. And the beauty of having a quarterback like John Mateer is you have to respect him in the pocket, because if he decides to scramble, he probably gone. And I don't care what level you're playing at. I mean, SEC, Pac-12, Big Ten. He was doing that to just about everybody. So that's what you want to prepare yourself for. So, John, when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at now the depth chart of who will line up when you got him, Giovanni Gibson, right? You've got Keontez Lewis. We're probably going to grab one more wide receiver is what I'm sensing, that one more is going to come in. And now then you've got a lot of evaluations to do on how you want to make sure you rotate everybody, because even though you're bringing all these players in that's got production, the question is going to be, how are you going to be able to play all these guys while not hindering the development of your young ones?
Well, I think you're going to see more wide receivers on the field. You're going to see a whole lot more 10 personnel where you're running 4 wide receivers and a running back. You're going to see a lot more empty with no tight end on the field, and you're running 5 wides. I think that's going to be some of the Ben Arbuckle air raid component that we see with this team. And I think some of the thing that we wanted to see this year, given the wide receiver depth that Oklahoma had, you just never got a chance to, because all those dudes were injured all season. So you never got a chance to see 4 or 5 wide situations where you had Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson, Deion Burks, Andrell Anthony, Jaleel Farouk all on the field at the same time, just creating matchup nightmares for the opposing defense. Well, in Ben Arbuckle's system, when you go empty and you go 5 wide, you've got a lot of depth now. And if you're bringing in Sategna and Deion Burks as your slot wide receivers in a 4 wide receiver set, that's cooking, man. You got 2 guys that are able to make some plays after the catch and create a lot of open space for themselves because of their athleticism and route running ability. And then again, if you're running 5 wide, you might need 3 slot guys. And so that's Jacob Jordan, Isaiah Sategna, and Deion Burks all running in the slot. And then you got guys that you got a lot of big guys that you can run on the outside now, as you've added Giovanni Gibson and Keontez Lewis, and you've got Zion Kearney and Ivan Carrion. So it's going to be really fascinating to see how Ben Arbuckle, Emmett Jones want to deploy the wide receiver room. But based on what we've seen, some of the highlights we've seen of Ben Arbuckle's offense, some of the scouting that we've done, you see a lot of different personnel deployments, and they will run a lot more 4 and 5 wide receiver sets than what we're used to seeing at Oklahoma over the last, decade or more.
Yeah, it's been a bit. It's been a bit since we've seen those real concepts. I mean, I guess that probably did see a little bit of that with Caleb when he was here, but yeah, it's been a while. I mean, Baker maybe, but for the most part, you had really good tight ends at that point, and unfortunately, right now we have a lot of unproven tight ends on our roster, and so to be quite honest, I know everyone's like, we need to go get a tight end. I'm just thinking to myself, can we just get like some good big wide receivers and just call it a day? Like, I mean, I love to give Caden Helm the opportunity to show up, K McIntyre as well. Hey, Vaughn Mitchell, we've got 3 of them. Let him get the chance. But I would prefer to play all these wide receivers and keep the mesh concepts going and just keep the defense like just confused. Let them try to bring somebody on the outside and do a quick blitz. If John Mateer recognizes a blitz is coming, he's probably going to be able to look at his wide receivers, have one of them do a quick switch, and then boom, immediately when the blitz comes, launch that thing real quick to somebody coming across the middle. That way he's eliminating that rush that's going to come, or he can step up and launch it quickly, go deep to one of his wide receivers down the sideline. I don't care. But the tight end position, sure, I know a lot of people are not pleased with Joe John Finley right now and the way that the tight end spot is going. But, hey, in my personal opinion, I don't really care about tight end right now. I'm looking at this wide receiver room. We bring in 4 wide receivers with the young guys we have. Heck, throw Ivan Carry-On in there a little bit at, the tight end and have him come in and hedge folks, slide, bump them and then go to the outside and catch a pass. Do that instead. I don't care about tight end anymore, John. I've lost interest. At this point. I want to see John Mateer cook with some wide receivers.
Well, and here's the thing. If you don't have a legit difference maker to add in the transfer portal, why add one? Just to add one. To me,
just do stuff just to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't just bring in a guy just to bring in a guy. That doesn't make any sense. I think Bauer Sharp could have had a much more fruitful season this year if he wasn't considered the number 1 option at tight end. But we've seen this team just bring in a guy just to have a guy. I'd rather go through some growing pains with the guys that you've got on the roster who were 4-star prospects in Caden Helms and Vaughn Mitchell and a guy like Cade McIntyre, who is a very athletic dude and can make plays in the open field and in the passing game. He just needs more experience. All 3 of these guys just need experience. And what's the best way to get them experience? Well, not bring in a veteran that is, quote unquote, again, a progress stopper, someone who's going to take all those first team snaps and not allow you to get those guys on the field in spring ball,
right,
in fall camp, and early in the non-conference season. You just got to play these guys sometimes, and you got to put them out there, and you got to let them make mistakes, and you got to rotate them through and take advantage of what they can do in the passing game, because all 3 of those guys can make plays in the passing game.
Agreed.
Will they be great blockers right away? Probably not. But you don't need them to be great blockers in a spread concept system, right? What's the goal? You're trying to get people spread sideline to sideline, creating space and creating openings so that your run game has more room to work, and so that the wide receivers have more room to work in the pass concept as well. So don't just bring in a guy just for the sake of bringing in a guy. Again, you like Devon Mitchell, right? We liked Caden Helms coming out of high school, right? Just couldn't stay healthy, right? Cade McIntyre. A very underrated tight end prospect. So like the guys we have, roll with that. But the wide receiver room, man, it's starting to look really, really solid. Again, got to see what it looks like on the field come fall next year. But I like the pieces that they've added. A lot of high upside guys that's going to bring a lot of competition to the depth chart at wide receiver. We've got a depth chart for OU Navy. We'll give you our takeaways from that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
At that time of year, the college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever. Bring you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Leading into our first matchup, the SMU Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. And shout out to our partners over there at Home Field Apparel. Right now, they're hooking you up. You can get 15% off your first purchase by using our code Sooner24. And you can get great gear like this. I've got this coach's jacket that I got off of there. They've also got great boxes, which includes 3 never-before-seen items that you can't get anywhere else. On top of that, if you take advantage of the Platinum box, you'll get a new hat, a ringer, as well as a VIP koozie, and 20% off and early access to any new apparel for the rest of the year. So you better jump on it now, because they're creating something every single month in preparation to finish the college football season. So go check out homefieldapparel.com. Use our code Sooner24 to get 15% off your first purchase. Again, homefieldapparel.com, and check out all their unique vintage gear.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, we've got a depth chart for OU Navy. What stood out to you the most when you first looked at it?
So when I took a gander at this bad boy, the first thing that jumped out to me was, oh, look, Caden Helms and Devon Mitchell are on here as your second and your third tight ends. And Von Mitchell's listed at 289 pounds, which is definitely a typo. That's definitely not what it says on the roster itself. But, hey, we'll take that. But also, the second thing is you don't see any Javonte Barnes. You see Gavin Sawchuk with Sam Franklin, Taylor Tatum, and then Xavier Robinson. I'm guessing the question I asked when I looked on the offensive side of it is, I guess they don't want to run Xavier Robinson into the ground in this game. Kind of makes sense, right?
I'm for it. Mileage matters at running back.
Yes, it does. It does. It does. It does. It does.
And listen, you're probably going to run a lot of guys. You're going to give a lot of reps to the running back room in this game against Navy because they're going to want to play ball control offense. You're going to want to do that as well. And given the fact that your wide receiver room is going to be very, very inexperienced and Michael Hawkins is making his first start since the South Carolina game, you're going to want to try to lean on the run game and hope that you can create some big runs against a Navy defense that, hey, listen, I'm not going to sit here and underrate Navy. They're a really good team. They're a really good football team. But it's not like you're facing LSU or Texas or Ole Miss or South Carolina or Alabama's defensive front. You should be able to run the ball against Navy. So that does stand out a little bit. Also, everybody's talking about it, but Danny Stutzman, no Billy Bowman, no Danny Stutzman on the depth chart. So I imagine this means they're not going to play in this game.
Yeah, and Danny kind of said it in his goodbye post that, that was the end of the road for him or whatnot. And I think Billy posted one similar. So kind of made me feel like they weren't going to play. But Ethan Downs did not give us a goodbye post, and he is on the depth chart. You see Dominic Williams. And so if Dominic ends up playing in this game, I'm sensing that Dominic's going to probably try to make a return next year. Same thing with Robert Spears-Jennings. So all the guys that you're expecting to be able to not to be gone, they may be making a valiant return in this game. Another one that jumped out to me, though, and we talked about this in the last segment, Ivan Carrion is your starting wide receiver. Mm-hmm. He is number one with Zion Kearney right behind him and then Trey Brown. On the other side, you've got Zion Rajan with Kearney behind him and Eli Merrick. I know that Zion Kearney was dealing with that ankle injury right after on the last play of the game against LSU. They had to carry him off the field, which was so sad. I'm guessing that he's trying to get it better, trying to make sure that he's able to cut on it and play. Want to see him. But we do also have a sighting of Deion Burks or Jacob Jordan in there. So hopefully Deion Burks decides to give it a go, just to get himself warmed up. He doesn't need to put a lot of mileage on himself, but at the same time, he's a wide receiver. Wide receivers ain't getting hit that often. Just catch it, get to the ground, you'll be all right. So I like seeing that. And I think the last thing, John, that really caught my attention, I'm keeping it on the offensive sides, Daniel Akinkumi is right behind Heath Ozida at guard. That's kind of interesting. It's like, what are we about to do here?
Yeah, no real surprises at offensive line. Logan Howland at left tackle, Heath Ozida at guard, center Troy Everett with Branson Hickman behind him, Fabechi Weewood at right guard, and Michael Tarkin at right tackle, or Spencer Brown. We'll see. I bet they try to get both those guys a bunch of reps, given it's going to be their last game at the collegiate level, trying to, make their case for being a draftable prospect. Linebacker is going to be fascinating with no Danny Stutzman, Kobe McKenzie starting at Mike, Kip Lewis or Lewis Carter starting at Will, and then Sammy Omasigo or Lewis Carter starting at Cheetah. And then our guy, Reggie Powers, the third, listed as the third string Cheetah over there. So that's really interesting there. Listen, the linebacker room is going to be really good. It's going to be different without Danny Stutzman, without Dasan McCullough, but it's still going to be a really, really good linebacker room.
No, I totally agree. And what's going to be most intriguing about this game is because since they're playing against a triple option team, they're going to need to be able to go hit some people to disrupt all of the blocking schemes and the misdirection that they do. And so I like the idea of a Lewis Carter there at Cheetah because he's going to run and hit somebody. And when he hits them, they're going to feel it. It's going to have a ripple effect throughout the entire scheme of the block. And if he can go in there and disrupt it, there's a good chance you can get in that backfield and cause a lot of problems when it comes to running that offense. So I'm very intrigued to see what this linebacker room looks like. I'm definitely excited about seeing Canick get himself some more run as well. I actually expect him to get some good run right behind Kobe McKenzie. So seeing Kip, Kobe, Canick, and Carter all get some run together is going to be a good time for us screaming out the entire time. So, but Cheetah's fascinating with Omasego as well as Lewis Carter, because I think that's where you can have Lewis Carter really disrupt things. The edge, though, I'm kind of surprised, honestly, seeing Danny Okoye right behind Trace Ford and R. Mason Thomas. If R. Mason decides to come back, I don't expect to give him a bunch of snaps in this game. I feel like you probably want to throw your young pups out there and get them going a lot more. That's just me personally. I would want to see a lot of PJ and a lot of Okoye, because Ethan Downs is going to get enough of it, but I really want to see those two side by side with each other, across the field from each other, ready to rush in, because I think that's going to be a devastating set of edges.
Yeah, you got to get those guys at least 20 snaps in this game.
At minimum.
You have to, because you got to continue to develop them. The best way to develop is to play. And if you can get Danny Okoye and Adepoju Adebaware a lot of snaps in this one, I think it helps set them up for the offseason. It gives them game tape to go into the offseason and say, hey, okay, this is what I did well. This is what I didn't do well. I set the edge well here. I cheated a little bit too much inside on this play. It'll help them learn more consistency. And again, having Ethan Downs playing in this one, I think that helps, and it's going to help those guys too, because as they get some more snaps than they've gotten at the collegiate level, Ethan can talk to them about what they've done and how they can continue to get better. That dude's a leader, and he's going to be a big time leader for that group. Jaden Jackson getting the start or in the with Grayson Halton. Again, just goes to show the season that he's had for the Sooners. And then at corner and safety, you got Eli Bowen and Peyton Bowen, both listed as starters for the Sooners. So that's kind of fun to see. And that's going to be a really unique part of the defense next year, having Eli Bowen and Peyton Bowen both lining up as starters for the defense.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to see both of them going out there together. I mean, just the brothers playing. You're going to have the combination, and that safety room is going to be so much fun. Like we talked about, Peyton Bowen's listed right now as a strong safety. I prefer him at free. Move Robert Spears-Jennings to strong and let him come down as the enforcer on the run game, because he's that good, especially as good as he is on the blitz. Like, it's funny, I posted a video of him on the blitz against Auburn as well against Tennessee, and NFL scouts are looking at it like, yeah, that dude knows how to run. He knows how to get to the quarterback. Give me more Robert Spears-Jennings in positions like that. Like, I get you list him at the free, move him to strong, and just have him going in. Same thing with Boganowski. Those are two dudes who are going to be your run stoppers, if anything. And Jaden Hardy's going to really be your free. He's going to be the one just roaming around doing stuff and making things happen. And that's the reason why you don't see Reggie Powers here, because Reggie Powers is probably going to be your starting cheetah going into the season next year. I'm just going to say it now. As a redshirt freshman, I think he's going to end up winning that job, just because I know that he has the size and the power, and he's very, very versatile in his movement. You would want him at your cheetah role, and then once Kendall Dobie gets healthy enough, you'll have him to rotate with him on a regular basis.
It's exciting, man, to see what the depth chart looks like now, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think there's a lot to be excited about, and this bowl game gives you an opportunity to see what the future is going to look like. Offensively, it's intriguing, man. Can a guy like Ivan Carrion come out and have a big-time performance? He's getting all the first-team reps right now as Oklahoma prepares for this bowl. It's not like he's getting these second and third team reps and now he has to come into the game cold and just get a handful of reps in the game and try to go make a play. No, he's getting a lot of first team reps now to work with Michael Hawkins in the offense, and maybe he'll have a chance to go do some things for the Sooners passing attack. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube, so hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams. You can also read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. You can also check us out on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Locked On Sooners. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner.